to this week's episode on Live Chat. I trust that you have had a wonderful and lovely week and that you are keeping safe and making sure to follow the government regulations and guidelines just to keep yourself safe from the COVID pandemic. Now, this week on Live Chat, we are about to have a chat on a very important and crucial topic, especially for young people in this day and age. Now, currently, statistics have shown that depression is on the rise and is amongst some of the high-ranking silent killers of young people in this generation. So today we really want to understand this whole idea of depression. What is depression? And can people get to overcome depression? And really, if it is possible, then what is the process of getting to overcome depression? But before we delve into that today, I have with me guests on set who will help us understand more on this issue of depression. So guys, welcome on set today. Hello, and tell me who you are, where you come from, and what you do.
Yes. My name is Ndwati Murigi. I serve as a pastor in a church in Nairobi. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being available to come on set today with us.
Anytime.
My name is Favor Omondi. I recently graduated from USIU studying psychology. I've worked in mental hospitals, but right now I'm just waiting for the next step, but that's what I do.
And we really hope that doors open for you.
Amen.
So guys, welcome on set today. Like I previously mentioned, today we just want to have a chat, a discussion on the whole idea of what depression is. Like I previously mentioned, depression is raging. It's raging in the lives of young people right now. And it's not uncommon every single day to hear that someone has succumbed to depression. And they've probably gone to the very extreme, which I understand is the extreme of it. And that is dying by suicide. So really, I just want to understand today, when you hear the word depression, Pasi, what is depression and what is your understanding of depression for a young person?
Yeah, when I think in the past couple of years, maybe in the last decade, that's when we really have had it a lot. And maybe we make the assumption that it's something new. I think that's even the first place to begin at. We think that it's something new, this phenomenon that people are super sad or people don't know what to do with their lives, and we think that's what's happening with them. Yet it's something that has been there for quite a long time. And at the same time, it is what we would call one of the many mental illnesses, that it is a legitimate way in which sometimes our body fails us. And sometimes we are familiar with our body failing us, maybe in our lungs, our kidneys, our knees, our bones, our joints, and sometimes our minds fail us as well. And so it's a subject that I guess requires a lot of sensitivity and at the same time no beating around the bushes. Let's acknowledge that it's something that's there, it's something that's going on in people's lives, and it really is something that people can find healing from at the same time.
I like that you mentioned that depression is not a new phenomenon. It's not something new, and it's just one amongst many mental illnesses that are going about, right? So now, Favor, from a psychological point of view, what causes depression?
Well, we can't really pinpoint to the cause of depression because it's an emotional reaction to an event that happens in someone's life. Sometimes it is due to a chemical imbalance in the body where you find you're getting low levels of serotonin and dopamine, where you're not able to wake up in the morning, you're hopeless, you don't have the strength to wake up, to get up, to do daily activities, losing interest in things that you used to do. So those are some of the symptoms that someone with depression could exhibit. And this happens from a period of 2 weeks, 2 months, to even years. So if you're having a bad day for one day, you can't say, oh, I'm so depressed, I've not eaten lunch today. That's not depression.
So we misuse the term, because I can actually count the number of times I have probably used that term. So it's wrong to use it in that sense.
Yes, it has to be medically diagnosed by a specialist, where you present the symptoms and then they can go on ahead and give you a proper diagnosis. Yes.
a proper diagnosis. So it is not something that I can self-medicate myself and just
No,
say
no,
that,
no.
keeping myself around positive people and having positive vibes would be able to cure me from depression. Now, Pasi, in your line of work, you serve in church, and you will probably come across young people who are going through such phases or are having such problems. How do you, as a pastor, direct them to the kind of help that they should seek?
I think the most important thing is to probably try and ask what the cause could be. And it might be quite the task, but if you're able to help them through conversation, try to figure out what the cause is, then that's where maybe you can try to talk about it. In my experience, or rather, as I've been thinking about this topic and so on, I've been able maybe to summarize the causes as three things. I use the acronym WA, like kushtuka WA. Yeah. So like one of them could be something's not just working right, and it's maybe what Favor has mentioned, that maybe the same way you can have a defective kidney or a defective heart, maybe also there's something in your mind that's not working, chemical imbalances, and so you don't know why, but you're weeping all the time. That's because of something that's going on up there, and that needs to be medically addressed because it's a medical thing. And then the other thing, so that's about the working, it's not working right. The other thing is just something is not adding up. It's when we get to points in our lives and we really can't add 2 plus 2, so to speak. And so maybe you get to a point and you're wondering, God is good, but there's so much suffering. And it's not just a statement for you, it really lodges in your head and you're unable to stop thinking about it, and it really troubles you. That's the something's not adding up. And then the next thing is just something is heavy on you. So that's a H. Something is heavy on you. So maybe you lost your mom, you might, that's heavy. Or, I don't know, there was war in your country and you are able to see people die. That's heavy. And so such are the things that maybe may be happening. And so I guess the best place to know is you start from there. And then if it's something that's not adding up, maybe conversations help. So it could be conversations with a pastor, it could be conversations with a counselor. If it's something that's heavy on you, maybe finding people who've been in the same space can help you work that out. So if you've lost your mom, maybe someone who's been in that space can really be of encouragement to you. So I guess the most important thing is taking time, being patient, being gentle, and trying to understand where is this person, what's going on, try to unearth what's happening, why, and then when you get to the core of it, then you will know, okay, for this is the best way to go about it.
That is the best recourse. Now, Favor, that is one of the ways in which the church is trying to be able to assist people that are going through depression. Now, what is the best way medically? What is the route medically to be able to tackle the whole situation of depression?
Okay. Like, psychology is not a set book. It's not written on stone that this is what you should do to this person who's going through depression, because like you said, it's different causes. So it's different things that could happen. Sometimes it's your chemical, sometimes it's just something that, like you said, it's heavy upon you and you can't handle it. So what we like to do in psychology as psychologists is, first of all, determine how to help the person cope with what they're feeling right now. Sometimes and many times people have depression to the point of they cannot sleep or they cannot eat, and at that time then a psychiatrist who's able to to prescribe medicine would give you medication for it to improve your sleep, improve your appetite, things like those. Along with medicine, there's also now psychotherapy, where you can see a counselor, a psychologist. We call them so many things, but in short, it's just talking to someone, trying to determine what brought me to this point and how do I cope, and later on move from there.
And just to be able to just further probe into that, why is it so hard for young people, and especially people in general, to seek help from a counselor or a psychologist? Why is it so hard?
I think because there's this notion that when I'm going to a psychologist, I must be really sick. Am I crazy? There's that notion that you're going to a shrink, then that means things are just horrible. But counseling can be for anything. People go to counselors to seek direction, to seek clarification if you're going through something, maybe a sad time, a happy time. Sometimes we don't know how to express and take in all those happy emotions. And so it's basically talking to someone, just getting to hear your perspective from someone else. Because there's one thing we do in psychology is we never tell someone what to do. We will never, and if you go to a psychologist who tells you to do this and that, then I don't know if you're going to the right person. But we never advise. We just listen to what you're saying and help you explore those areas in which we can tackle together for you to get the solution, because we believe that the solution lies within you. It's just you to be in a space where you can take that information and figure out what you want to do. Because eventually everybody knows what they want to do. Everybody has their own goals. Your goals are not my goals, but we can help you get there. So how do we do that?
Amazing. The solution lies within. And this is what we are trying to espouse and to put out there. Now, when we come back, we will get to understand, is it okay for a Christian to go through depression? And then we will get to hear life stories from the guests that I have on set. But before that, we will take a short break. And just before that, I invite you to come and have an amazing and beautiful time here at Asiana Gardens, where you get to have an amazing and beautiful time full of great ambience and just relaxation at its best. See you after the break. Before we went for the break, we had left you with something to think about, and that is whether it's okay for a Christian to go through depression. And if so, what is the best recourse? Now we are back again. Pasi, I just want to start with you. Is it okay for a Christian to go through depression? Because normally when you go and sit through sermons, and some of the sermons I have personally sat through, depression is brought off as something that comes from the devil. That as a Christian, why should you even go through depression? You're supposed to be having the joy of the Lord, you know. So really, why should you be going through depression? So really, just tell us, is it okay?
I like your question because of how it's been framed. When you say, is it okay to go through depression, maybe it's also the same as, is it okay to, I don't know, contract malaria, you know? And that's why we get to it. If you're saying that it's actually an illness, then I think the same way we get nosebleeds and headaches and stomach aches, there is a chance that for someone in whatever space, they will be subject to how our bodies fail us. And it happens even to the best of us. And it's a reality of just what I mentioned. If we are living in a broken world, if we have broken bodies, then there's a chance by which, by the virtue that we live in this world and in these bodies, at some point the systems will fail us, our families will fail us, life will crumble, our bodies won't work as they should, and we end up into something, and sometimes it's depression. Maybe something that maybe people don't know, and it's a very interesting thing once I learned it, is that there's a preacher who's very prolific, and it was Charles Spurgeon of the 19th century, 1800s Apple. And the most interesting thing, he's known as a prince of preachers. He was a heavy hitter when it comes to the word. At 22 years old, leading a huge congregation, and like he really brought the word of God and changed lives through it.
He was the Timothy of his age.
He was he was a main man at that point, leading a whole church in London. Like a 22-year-old maybe leading like the biggest churches in Nairobi right now, think about it. That's the equivalent of that. But yet in his lifetime, for close to 30 years or so, it is documented that he struggled with depression, that there was that going on, that God was working mightily in his life, but at the same time, just there are things that he just couldn't put together, and it put him in a very weird and low space. And his wife talks about it, that he was really sad and going through the motions and all that, and he really went through it. And so I guess such stories remind us of such realities, that I'd argue even Jesus himself had such moments. When we read in Matthew 26, if you look at it, just when he gets into the Garden of Gethsemane, just he knows my betrayer is at hand, ako njiani anakuja. And what he actually tells, he calls 3 of his disciples and says, come please pray with me, calls them aside, and actually just opens up to them and says, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Stay here with me. And in that moment, we are sure that Jesus was in such a space where he really struggled in that moment to make sense of what was going on. The Bible tells us he was agitated. He was in that space. And I guess it does happen to the best of us.
And it's really nice because it's relatable that Christ did go through it. And so meaning that if Christ was able to go through it and he was able to conquer it, and we actually see how he goes on to address the issue, is the fact that we can also, as Christians, go through depression, but we can also seek help and assistance from fellow brethren, right? Now, I understand, Favor, that you want to share something about the story on depression and just how you were able to just go through it and emerge victorious.
Yeah, I think for me, it started when I was young. I didn't even understand. I was in high school and I'm supposed to be happy. I'm in a national school. I'm doing well. My grades are good. But I encountered some bullying. And at that point, I felt that I was at my lowest. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't understand because, like you said, being brought up in a Christian home, I'm supposed to be having the joy of the Lord. You know, it is my strength, and I'm supposed to be going to church and praying and fasting and doing all these things. But yet I just felt that there's something within me that was extremely sorrowful. And at that point, I just turned to, first of all, my friends who were near me, and I started sharing about my experiences and what I was feeling. And, you know, even from me not being energetic enough to get out of bed, to do the things that I used to do.
And just before that, Favor, before you could approach your friends and tell them this, how hard was it or how easy was it for you?
I think for me it was extremely difficult because I was so used to being in choir, in church, at home, as you know, everyone loved me, and I was open, I was extroverted at that point, and so I used to wonder, why am I not the same person I was? I'd think maybe it's mood swings. Okay, I'll just get better. Maybe it's a bad day turned into a bad week turned into a bad month, and I was thinking, what is happening? You know, there's no one in my family who shared or who expressed that they went through depression or they went through a hard time. And so I didn't have anyone to look up to say, okay, you know what, they went through this period. And so for me, before I got to share, I think it was up to the point where I felt I can't take this anymore. I need to talk to someone about it. That's when I just had to share it, but it was extremely, extremely difficult. Yes.
Okay. So, Pasi, I just want to understand from your perspective. Say, at some point, I also understand that you also went through a similar thing. And so how, say, now, I am not sure whether it was before or after you became a pastor, but for you, was it the same experience like Favor, that it was so hard, or you were just constantly battling with the idea of the fact that, you know, I come from this and this certain type of household, I'm a Christian, I'm not supposed to be feeling like this, so should I really open up? And is it even possible, is it even right to be able to open up to people that I'm going through this experience?
Yeah, more or less. I think for me it was a very interesting experience. Okay, we overuse the word interesting, but that's what it was. But it was, I really felt, the best way to describe the feelings, I really felt lost and disconnected. I felt like I was just going through life. We wake up, we sit to eat breakfast, we go to work, we come back, and it was just going through the motions. And I could tell something was not right. I was unable to keep up with social connections, so to speak. If you're there, we'll be there. But the idea of being able to reach out or like just create these connections was really difficult. And I remember even at the moment I had a relationship and it suffered and just ikaisha.
Kunywa maji tu hivyo.
Kakunywa maji tu hivyo. And I remember it was maybe for like 4 or 5 months where I was just like, I'm just like, something's not right. This is not how it's supposed to be. I didn't know who to talk to. Just generally, I guess the type of person I am is I know many people and not many people know me. And then I can be quite hype, so to speak. And those are the kinds of people that you never really think about asking, how are you? And so even getting to the point of having this conversation, apart from the person I was in a relationship with and I was trying to explain, but still it was hurting the relationship. I don't think I was able to talk to anyone. But I remember I even went to find a book, and I'm really grateful to God that I found this resource. And maybe I could recommend it to anyone who wants to dive into it.
Go right ahead.
It's called When the Darkness Does Not Lift, or Won't Lift. One of them will not lift or does not lift. But When the Darkness Does Not Lift by John Piper. And it's just a reality of you might be a Christian, but maybe for 2 days or 2 months or 2 years or 20 years, the darkness is not lifting. What are you supposed to do? And that book, I would say, is what really made me get back on my feet, so to speak. I remember sections within that really spoke to me, and I remember thinking, maybe this is it. When it talks about maybe it's a sin in your life that is clogging your joy, when it talks about the reality of people that have gone through it and how they went into the Bible and that opened up wells of life in their lives. And for me, that book was where it changed, and I got back on my feet, back to now, I would say, living a full life, full awareness, full engaging myself fully in all areas of my life, and I'm really grateful to God for that.
That you were able to overcome that. Yeah. Now, there's something we have probably seen in our Christian circles many times, and we've probably, if not been able to directly experience it, but we've probably heard of other people's stories where we find that there was this joyful person who was constantly serving in ministry, was there for everyone, was very joyous, but then all of a sudden they caved in and they're found in their houses. They've died by suicide. And nobody can be able to just begin to pinpoint and pick out a point in their lives that would have pointed towards them suffering from any kind of depression. Now, I want to understand, has the church contributed in any way to create this model of a very perfect society that doesn't go through suffering and tribulation so that it bars people from opening up to members of the church community that they are going through a phase, or they're going through depression, or they're sad at that point and they need help? Has the church contributed? And if so, how has it done that?
It's a heavy question. I'm afraid of just answering the church, lest it be assumed that the entire church is not doing the right thing. I do believe there are spaces that are whole and safe, but I do think there are some areas in church life, so to speak, that if we don't address rightly, then that might be the outcome. One of the things is maybe like that God really created us for community, and that should be overemphasized in the Christian life. And community is what helps us get through the tough times. But if we don't have that, if we don't make that a part of our church life, then statistically speaking, we will see more of people succumbing to despair and anxiety and agony because they don't have people around them, people who they can trust, people who are safe, people who can help them walk through it bit by bit. And maybe another thing I can think about is also maybe when we don't talk enough or well about the idea of suffering in life. Because most of the times, maybe our evangelism is come to Jesus and he'll sort all your problems. And maybe on the pulpit, we never talk about the reality of sometimes life gets tough, and we equip Christians with how to think in such situations, how to move in such situations, what to do in such situations. And so if we don't equip them in that way, and then they find themselves in that space of life, either they feel they were deceived or they are self-deceived. Either they think, maybe I'm not Christian enough, why is this happening to me? Or they end up not having the tools they need to deal with this situation right here, and maybe they end up succumbing. So maybe those are the areas where we can be more intentional as a church, so emphasizing community and also just equipping our people to understand how to cope when things are not working out as we thought they would.
Favor, considering the fact that at that point in time you were growing in a Christian community, you have come from a Christian family, so it definitely must have been hard. Do you think there's some things that stopped you from, say, talking to a friend at church or a pastor at church? There were some things that you looked at and you were like, no, I don't think I can be able to do that.
I think from a point of why is this happening to me and yet I'm a Christian, I'm supposed to be happy, I'm supposed to be joyful, I've been saved, I've been redeemed. I mean, the worst is gone, I'm going to heaven. You know, I should be happy and celebrating. I think that's one of the things that makes it hard, in that sometimes some people unknowingly or knowingly, sadly, make it look like when you go through depression, or insinuate it that it's ungodly, that you know, the devil has come to steal your joy, so you must be giving the devil a foothold in your life. But sometimes it's just, some things are very difficult to go through. And I think after I finally was able to share with my friends, and then with my family, that's when they really understood. And I think for my family, it wasn't until they really saw it affected me, even physically, to the point that I was unwell, is when they're like, okay, this is something that we really need to talk about and educate ourselves. But it doesn't have to get to that point. We can, by having conversations like this that we're having, people can know that it is something that is real. It's like what you said, is it okay to have malaria? Is it okay to have a stomachache? You know, no one tells you why you're having a stomachache. You should
You're
just
supposed to have received healing by the stripes of Jesus, yeah?
Exactly, which I receive it, amen. But sometimes we need to seek other interventions, like going to a counselor, seeking help. And sometimes depression is as easy as saying, you know what, I just need help in this area of my life. And like he said, a community, people will walk with you, will see you through that challenging time, because like Jesus, like he said, he sought help from his friends, from his disciples, from his followers. It means that anyone can go through it. There's death that comes into our lives because we're living in a world that isn't perfect. There are sometimes we lose jobs, sometimes we're not in school, sometimes we lose relationships, we lose friends, we lose family. There's so many things that can happen to us that cause us to be in that place where we feel like we are hopeless. But there's definitely hope in Jesus, by trusting and believing that he's going to heal you, because we do need his stripes to heal us. It's not that I'm going to a psychologist, I'm going to be okay because I'm taking medication and because I'm going to therapy. The psychologist will leave you with more questions than answers, but the answer lies in Christ. I think the other thing that really helped me is knowing my purpose was in Christ, and Christ did not create me to be depressed. He created me to go through the fire. And that phrase, go through the fire, means I will actually have to go through the fire. But he says, when you go through the fire, I'll be with you. So it means that there's a way out. You don't have to be stuck in that situation. You just have to believe and hope in Him and trust. And with faith that God will take you through with help from your community, your family, your friends, other believers who are really important in this time, because we're supposed to hold each other up even when we are mourning, when we are joyful, not only when God is good all the time, I'm getting promotions and money, but also in these other times of life where everyone goes through. That's how I believe we can all come to build each other up here.
There's something very profound that you mentioned, and that is the fact that Christ doesn't promise a smooth sailing life in Christianity, but he says that when you go through it, I will be there with you. And I think this is an assurance that Christians have, unlike other people who are in the world, where you will just go through turmoil and tribulations and you will just be alone. But in Christ, there is hope that someone is walking with you every single step of the way. Now, I think this is a question that is probably lingering in the mind of many people, and it is, can you just completely cure depression, or is it something that you will constantly have to keep on? You know, it's a day by day progress. It's a day by day journey, and it's you are at risk of falling back once it was said cured at some point.
Yeah. So I don't know if cure is a word to use. I don't know if there's a cure for depression because many people would run and take it. But I think, like I said, it's just recognizing where you're at life, the kind of challenges you're facing, the kinds of changes you're going through. Some people go through depression not because something bad is happening to them, but because they've gotten a promotion and they don't know how to deal with the kind of complexities a promotion takes. Yeah, moving to a different country. You can move to US for people who like to, you know, go abroad. And it's a good country, but it can come with depression because you don't know how to adjust. So I think one way is to recognize that there are always points in life where you won't be at 100. It's just, what do I do to cope about it? Once you've gone into depression, then I think there's always that fear where you're afraid to go back to that point where you felt helpless and hopeless. And so it's something that I've seen many people who've had depression or other mental illnesses go through. They have so much anxiety that they're like, I don't want to go through it again. I don't want to go through it again. I don't want to go through it again. I must avoid at all costs. But it's just how to take care of yourself, believing in God that He'll take you through every season, every step of the way, because in life there's so many challenges. Like at my age, I can't start imagining and counting the number of times that I think I'll fall into depression because of the challenges that we can face. But it's just believing that God is there to carry me through every step of the way. And once you know that, once you're equipped with coping skills to know how to deal with it, how to talk to someone, how to talk to a professional, how to seek help when you feel like you can't help yourself, is something that is important. So I think just accepting that, you know what, I'm weak in this area. Everybody has weaknesses. I think that's one of the things that we really are afraid to admit and accept and say, you know what, I need help. I need help. I really need your help. So accepting that and just knowing how to receive that help when we're given that help is very important to me.
I like that the very first step towards healing and towards conquering this whole animal of depression is acknowledging, then after that, seeking help. Now, you guys are living testimonies of people who have been able to go through it and live through it victoriously. Now, just one final word to someone who is there and they're wondering, I don't see anything working out in this life. To be honest, I don't even understand why I was created or why I even exist. I don't understand what life means. And I don't know why I should be going through this. I am supposed to be a Christian. My life is supposed to be smooth sailing. Why am I going through this? To such kind of a person, what would you tell them as someone who's gone through it and emerged victorious?
I like the thought of Paul in Romans chapter 8. And it says in verse, I think we know verse 31, most of us, it says, if God is for us, who can be against us? And then verse 32 actually says that if God did not hold back his son, but gave him up as a sacrifice for sin, to show how much he loves us, won't he give us all things? And I think in such moments, our biggest doubt is that, does God really love me? Does God really care? Does God really see me? And for that person, the one thing I'll tell them, just look back at the cross. And maybe what's happening right now, you're not understanding what's going on. If you read the rest of Romans chapter 8, it goes on to say, or rather you get the idea that there is tribulation and persecution going on. That's why they're being told there's a sword, there's trouble, there's peril, but none of this can separate you from the love of Christ. What really gets into doubt is, does God love me? Does God see me? Does God hear me? Does God know me? But the reality is, when we look at the cross, we can see that God is intentional in knowing us, in seeing us. He hears us, he knows us, and he is committed to making us whole. And though that's not your reality at that moment, would you hold on to that truth and see God working through it?
Hold on to it and just trust that he's there and he's walking with you every single step of the way. Uh-huh.
I think for me, I'd say rediscovering my purpose, why God created me to be who I am today. There's so many times I'd want to question, why did I have to go through this experience? Lord, you'd have created me to just have a perfect life, perfect family, perfect school, perfect education, everything perfect, because he's perfect. I mean, why wouldn't he do that? But anyway, I think in those points, you learn so much, and there's so much growth that takes place at my lowest moments. I think that's when I got the most growth in my life. What I would do and would continue to do is just continue looking at my life. Where does God want me to be? Why did God create me? Why am I going through this? Because most times when you go through certain things, it's to prepare us to be there for someone else, or to prepare us to minister to someone else who needs that help. None of our experiences is for us. It's for other people, because God and Jesus encourages us to reach out to other people who need that hope, who need that faith, who need that encouragement that, oh, you can go through this, I can also go through this as well. And so I had to shift my perspective from feeling so sorry for myself and feeling, oh no, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve it, and this is so bad. I just want to, just to stay in my hole and stay there, but to recognize that I am able to tell myself. And even there's a verse in the Bible, I think it's in Psalm, it says, why are you downcast, oh my soul? Why are you disturbed? Put your hope in God. David had to talk to himself and say, imagine, why are you downcast? Put your hope in God. There's sometimes there are people who talk to you and it will just go out, in and out. But you have to get to a point where you determine and you purpose to put your hope in God. It has to come from you. And you decide, you know what, I might be in this, but I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to put my hope in God and let him carry me through this journey. Yeah, so I think for me, just knowing that it's not happening just for the sake of happening. It's happening because God has designed a specific plan for each and every one of our lives. And so for me, this is the path that I'm going to walk. I need to walk it in victory, knowing that God is holding me. Yeah.
Very profound words of encouragement from you guys. Now, guys, Depression is a reality. And as Christians, we need to understand and appreciate that it is something that as Christians, we are not exempt from going through. But Christ offers a solution. And Christ doesn't just leave it at that. But we see that from the life of Christ, there were moments in his life when he was at his lowest. But see how Christ goes about it. In the same way, we are encouraged as Christians that even in our lowest moments, to go and seek help. It might not come from the church community, but even when we need to go to hospital, then definitely that is a step that we need to take. And as people around people who are going through such low moments, we just need to be a light in their lives, a light just like Christ was, a light just like the Christian we are meant to be, so that we can point them to seek help and point them towards looking for hope where Christ is at. This has been Life Chat, when we were getting to understand what depression is. I encourage you who is at home and is going through such a phase, look for help. Acknowledge that you need help and seek it, because there are people out there who are ready and willing to walk with you every step of the way. This has been Life Chat at Asiana Gardens, and we were chilling and understanding what is happening in the lives of young people in this wonderful and awesome place. Just make sure to get to check it out. You can check out the websites, and you can also come physically to just enjoy this place. Until we meet next time, this has been your favorite and wonderful host, Upnyo Kabi. Bye-bye.